Lettuce is a great crop for home gardeners to grow. It's a very popular vegetable. It's easy to grow and it grows fast. Today I'll show you how to grow lettuce from seed to harvest. Though most Americans grow up on iceberg lettuce, which is most commonly found in supermarkets and in restaurants, there are hundreds of different lettuce varieties and many different colors to choose from. In addition to solid head varieties like iceberg, there are many varieties of loose head or bib lettuce, leaf lettuce, and romaine lettuce. Of these, loose and bib lettuces are the fastest and easiest to grow and may be the best choice for many home gardeners. You can start lettuce indoors in a grow room or south-facing window 7 to 8 weeks before your average last frost date, and transplant outside as early as 4 weeks before your last frost. Of course, you can delay transplanting if the ground is still frozen, covered in snow, or it's unseasonably cold. But lettuce can handle a frost, so don't wait until after your last frost date to plant. You can also direct sow lettuce in the garden as early as 4 weeks before the last frost, assuming the soil is thawed and isn't covered in snow. For a fall crop, sow lettuce again starting 7 to 8 weeks before the first frost. Lettuce tends to bolt and go to seed in hot weather, but if you have cool summers, you may be able to succession plant lettuce all summer long. And if temperatures rarely dip below freezing where you live, you may be able to grow lettuce through the winter. To start indoors, plant seeds 1/4 inch deep in a quality potting mix. If the seeds are new, I might plant only 1 seed per cell, but with older seeds, I plant 2 to 3 seeds to increase the likelihood that at least one of the seeds will germinate. If there are extra plants, I either snip the extras or transplant them into empty cells. In my experience, lettuce seeds usually stay viable for a couple years if stored in a sealed container in a dark, dry location. I recommend starting lettuce in cells or pots that are large enough for the plants to remain in throughout their time in the grow room. This way you don't have to transplant to larger pots before transplanting into the garden, and you minimize disruption of the plant's roots. After planting seeds, tamp down the soil to make sure the seeds are in contact with the soil and place your cells just a couple inches under your grow lights or in a sunny south-facing window. The seeds should germinate in 7 to 14 days. If your plants get leggy, it's likely because they aren't getting enough light. So you may need to lower your lights in the grow room or add supplemental lighting in your south-facing window. Lettuce seeds germinate best when the soil temperature is between 40 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit. But germination rates decline when the soil temperature is warmer than 68 degrees. So heating mats usually aren't needed unless you're growing in a very cool area. If you use a nutrient-rich potting mix, you shouldn't have to fertilize the plants while they're in the grow room. We use a mix that's 25% vermicompost from our worm bins and never use additional fertilizer. However, if you're using a potting mix that isn't fortified with nutrients, you can feed the plants every couple of weeks after the true leaves appear with a liquid fertilizer. Lettuce needs consistent but moderate watering, so we try not to let the soil get too soggy or to let it dry out for very long. In the grow room, we water on top at first until germination. But after germination, we add a little water to the seedling tray when the soil starts to dry out. Again, we don't add enough water to create soggy soil conditions. If the soil does get soggy, we pour off excess water from the tray. Now let's talk about planting and transplanting lettuce outside. Lettuce thrives in fertile, friable soil that has a pH between 6.5 and 7. Our pH is a bit higher than that, but lettuce still grows very well here. For spring, fall, and winter harvest, we plant in full sun, but for summer harvest, we plant in partial shade to delay bolting, which can be brought on by the summer heat. The plants take the heat as a signal that their life cycle is ending and it's time to reproduce. Plants started indoors can be transplanted into the garden as early as 4 weeks before the last frost. But as I said earlier, you can delay transplanting if the ground is still frozen, covered with snow, or it's unseasonably cold. However, you don't have to wait until there's no threat of frost. Lettuce can handle a frost and grows best in cool weather. So don't wait too long to plant if you want to get the most out of your lettuce. We find that lettuce transitions fairly easily from indoors to outdoor conditions. But before transplanting, we gradually harden off plants to outdoor conditions by leaving them outside for progressively longer periods of time over the course of at least a few days. We apply compost or vermicompost to the soil surface before transplanting, and we place the plants in the ground at about the same depth that they were in the pot, so that the lower leaves are slightly above the soil surface. If those leaves come in contact with the soil, they can rot, so we try not to bury too deeply. A good starting point for beginners in terms of plant spacing is to space the plants 6 inches apart, or 4 per square foot, which is the square foot garden spacing. You can also direct sow lettuce in the garden, starting as early as 4 weeks before the last frost, assuming the soil is workable and not covered in snow. Just apply compost to the soil surface, plant seeds 1/4 inch deep with spacing of 4 plants per square foot, and cover the seeds. Though we sometimes follow the square foot garden spacing of 4 plants per square foot, we also often plant much more intensively than that. For example, lettuce grows much more slowly in the fall and winter, so when we plant for fall and winter harvest, we plant it much closer together, because we know that it will take longer to reach full size. And closer spacing gives us more to harvest when growth is slow. And when the plants start to get too crowded, we simply harvest the outer leaves of the plants to make more room. We also sometimes densely broadcast seeds and then harvest young plants using a cut and come again approach. All this means is that we snip the entire plant about 1 inch above the soil, and then the plants will regrow. They'll continue to regrow after repeated cuttings until the plants go to seed. Lettuce is a fairly heavy feeder, but we find that we can maintain enough soil fertility simply by making annual applications of compost and mulch. If your soil isn't as fertile as ours, your crop may benefit from an organic fertilizer with a broad spectrum of nutrients. Just make sure not to use too much nitrogen because it can make lettuce taste bitter. Lettuce needs consistent, moderate watering. Try to avoid letting the soil get completely dry or soggy. Lettuce can taste bitter if the soil is allowed to remain dry for too long. Lettuce also grows best if there isn't too much competition from weeds, so make sure to keep the area weeded. An organic mulch such as autumn leaves or wood chips will help maintain more consistent moisture levels in the soil and suppress weeds. Lettuce grows best in cool weather, and when it gets hot, the plants will bolt and go to seed like this one is doing right now. But there are ways to extend the harvest a bit into the summer by delaying bolting. And you can do this by having the plants in partial shade, or grow them under a shade cloth. There are also lettuce varieties that are slower to bolt in hot weather, including Muir lettuce. And here's a list of other lettuce varieties that are slower to bolt. If you wait for plants to be fully mature before harvesting, most varieties are ready to harvest in 45 to 55 days, but romaine takes longer, about 75 to 85 days, and crisp heads take even longer, 70 to 100 days. But you can start harvesting much earlier than that simply by harvesting only the outer leaves as the plants are growing. Or you can harvest even earlier by planting very densely and harvesting young plants using the cut and come again approach I described earlier. Lettuce is susceptible to a number of different pests. You can protect your plants from four-legged creatures like rabbits, deer, and woodchucks with fences and other barriers. And Sluggo Plus is an excellent organic control for pests like slugs, snails, cutworms, and roly-polies. Finally, lettuce is cold hardy enough that we can harvest it here in our Zone 5 garden all winter long in our hoop house under 2 layers of cover. There's a lot involved in season extension, so I won't get into all the details today. Instead, I'll make a separate video on how we grow lettuce and harvest lettuce through the winter here in Zone 5. And when that video is available, I'll put a link here. So if you've never grown lettuce before, or you've tried and didn't have much luck, I hope this video will help you have more success in the future. I think the biggest takeaway is that lettuce likes cool weather, so don't wait until after your last frost to plant. I hope to make more of these how to grow videos focusing on specific crops. If there's a crop you'd like to see me cover in a future video, please let me know in a comment below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please subscribe for more videos on how to grow a lot of food on a little land without spending much or working harder than you have to.